Hello, Pittsburgh. I'm Zac Gibson, and this is Trib Lives from the Newsroom podcast, bringing you top stories from TribLive.com. Spring is here, and with it comes the beginning of concert and events season for Pittsburgh. With ticket prices towering high above the thawing temperatures, affordability has come to the forefront of concertgoers' conversations. Many different factors, like free market resale and dynamic pricing for ticket sale giants like Ticketmaster, are just some of the things that can impact your price of admittance. Alexis Papalia is here today to break down these factors and processes and help shed some light on why these ticket prices seem to be sky high. Hi, Alexis. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, let's talk concerts. It is finally starting to warm up here in Western Pennsylvania, and that means there are going to be a lot more activities to do outside. I know Pittsburgh just recently had its Thaw event celebrating exactly that, and the concert calendar is about to jump into full gear. So can you tell me about how that feels for you to be in this new concert season?
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a terrific year for concerts in Pittsburgh, and we've got some really amazing shows coming up. I'm very fortunate to get to cover a lot of concerts in a lot of variety of genres. Just this weekend, I'll be covering Disturbed, the alt-rock band, at PPG Paints Arena. That's really exciting. This summer, we have a really wide variety of great shows coming up. I'm most looking forward to covering Billy Joel and Rod Stewart. That's going to be great. I've been a Billy Joel fan basically since I was a toddler, so that'll be a lot of fun. Just this next month, we have AC/DC coming. For more pop and country fans, we've got Post Malone and Jelly Roll. Later this year, we have pop acts like Tate McRae and Sabrina Carpenter who will be in town, and there's some great country concerts coming up this summer as well with George Strait, Chris Stapleton, Luke Bryan. So, we're really very fortunate this in 2025 to have some great shows coming up, and it'll be a lot of fun for me and for all you fans as well.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's going to be a busy season for us. So, in this realm of concerts and those who attend them, it seems like the cost of a concert is starting to get out of hand. I know this is something we don't interact with as often when we are working and covering concerts, but when it comes to going as a fan, the prices are just starting to get a little bit crazy.
Oh, absolutely. We have seen a 20% increase in concert ticket prices just since 2021.
Wow.
So that's, if you think about it, your $80 concert ticket is now going to run you upwards of $100. And that makes a big difference when you're talking about entertainment costs. Those, when you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't have a lot factored in for entertainment and leisure, that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
If you look historically, even, we've made such huge jumps in concert ticket prices over the years. I mean, if you go back to say the 50s and Elvis Presley, a concert ticket would run you $1.50, if you can believe it. When the Beatles played here, the only time they ever played here, 60 years ago in 1964, concert ticket ran you $5.90, which would be about $60 in today's prices. Can you imagine seeing the Beatles for $60? That's crazy. Considering how much it cost to see Taylor Swift a couple years ago, that is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
So looking at these prices, it's really definitely an eye-popping figure for a lot of people right now.
Absolutely. I saw in your story you even included Nirvana would be, in 1993, it would have been $17, and that's about $38 today.
Yeah, and not just that, but Kurt Cobain was incredibly critical of other rock bands at the time who were charging upwards of $50, if you can believe it, for their ticket prices, saying that they were astronomical.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, all of these prices adjusted for inflation aren't even really at the level that most tickets are today that many people are paying for. And these prices alone are just getting you in the door. So let's talk about these ticket prices and what factors are really changing the music and artist industry so that these prices have to be so high.
Right. Well, there is something that has to be said first and foremost about the factor of demand. Now, supply and demand is obviously an economic principle that is very basic. And when it comes to things like concerts, it does factor a lot because there are only so many seats at a concert. For a one-time event, only so many people are going to get to go to any given concert. It's not an endless commodity. So when demand becomes incredibly high, like it does for something like, say, the Eras tour with Taylor Swift or the Cowboy Carter tour with Beyonce, those prices can go up as high as they want to because so many people want to go and the arenas only fit so many seats. So that's a huge part of it. But at the same time, we also, we're looking at a changing face of the music industry as well. So, for example, being a music artist isn't as profitable when it comes to things like sales as it used to be because we've shifted to such a streaming economy when it comes to listening to music. And artists really don't make very much money off of apps like Spotify or Apple Music, where they're making fractions of pennies per play. I mean, Snoop Dogg spoke last year about the fact that he's passed 1 billion streams on Spotify, and it didn't even make him anywhere remotely close to $1 million. That's not a very profitable industry. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but if you're talking about your run-of-the-mill artist, it's not the same as record sales back in the day. So they're making more money off of touring now than they ever were before. Then, of course, you want to talk about things like artist guarantees, where promoters, who are the people who organize, and promote these concert tours, are the ones who are offering a certain amount of money to artists that they are guaranteed to be paid regardless of ticket sales. And the promoters have to swallow that cost, which means that even if there are low ticket sales for an event, they still have to pay out a certain amount of money to an artist, so they're motivated to heighten the cost of tickets.
With promoters and guarantees, hiking up these costs kind of gives a cushion in case the sales aren't the best. But even if they are, the promoters and the artists themselves aren't the only people that need to be paid. There's a lot more personnel that goes into a music production than just the artist and the person who organizes it, correct?
Oh, right. I mean, the costs of tours themselves are more these days. If you're going to an arena tour, you have to think about the people who are working the show. You have to think about how much lighting costs, materials cost to build sets, the electrical costs. With inflation being as high as it is, those costs have gone up just as much in the past few years, which is going to cause inflation in the ticket prices as well, because that is factored into what you're paying when you buy a seat.
So another way that we see these inflated costs covered through the music industry is ticket sales surcharges.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit to me about how these surcharges work and what they are doing to ticket marketplace sites?
Oh, definitely. This is truly the bane of the concert goer's existence right here, the tickets price surcharges. When you go to Ticketmaster and you buy your seat and you see that it's going to cost you, say, $99, and you say, okay, that's a little steep, but I can deal with that. But then you get to checkout and see that it's actually going to cost you $130. Well, that's because of surcharges. That's because of the fees that are put onto these tickets for the actual arena, for the event center, for wherever you are going. That's where they get paid for this. That's where, personnel get paid here. And so it looks like a separate fee. It really should be all in one factored into the cost of the ticket, is what a lot of people argue. There are, in fact, some movements towards, in different states, having all-in pricing on sites like Ticketmaster, where they have to show you the full price of the ticket, including those fees, before you go to checkout when you're choosing your seat, so that you're not being surprised, when you're about to put your credit card information in and you're worried you're going to lose your seat.
It's my understanding that Pennsylvania is not one of those states, correct?
That's correct. Currently, Pennsylvania does not have any all-in pricing rules. However, some artists do. I know, for example, I purchased tickets to see Hozier last year through Ticketmaster, and he had it set so that you had to see all-in prices for the tickets that you were purchasing at the time. So that is an option that some of the bigger artists can use to make it a little bit easier on fans if they choose to.
Now, that brings up a question. When it comes to determining things like that, how involved or how much of the influence falls on the actual artists themselves?
Artists are surprisingly influential from the conversations that I had with people involved in the concert industry in setting the prices of their tickets. Now, it might not necessarily be that Taylor Swift is sitting down and scrawling out on a piece of paper, these are the tiers that I want for my tickets. It's about the agency and management that work for the artists that are setting a lot of these prices. But artists do, especially bigger artists, do have a pretty big say in what they want their ticket prices to look like in the end.
While we're on the topic of ticket marketplaces and online sites like StubHub and Ticketmaster, there is a system that hasn't been too popular with many ticket purchasers and concert goers. What is dynamic pricing?
Oh, yeah. This is the most controversial topic about ticket buying right now. Dynamic pricing is essentially a system used by, say, Ticketmaster that will real time adjust the prices of tickets based on demand. So, again, if you're talking about buying tickets for Beyonce, if you get in there and you see tickets that are $150, if people are really rushing in, if the queues are really long, if they're seeing really high demand, then those tickets can be automatically repriced higher. Um, and then you're just, that's just what you have to deal with. So that's what you're looking at with, I know Ticketmaster sometimes calls them platinum seats, but there are artists who do opt out of these. I know that, for example, Robert Smith from The Cure, which is a rock band from the 80s, has called them greedy, and Neil Young, the rock star, has opted out of using them on his upcoming tour. So again, these are something that the artists do to some level have a control over.
Okay. Now, I also wanted to ask about the ways that a free market can cause price hikes when it comes to resale services like StubHub.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people are buying their tickets through resale these days because it is really hard for these bigger artists to get those straight up tickets when they go on sale. And a big part of that is something that we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, StubHub and SeatGeek and Vivid Seats and these other resale sites are very popular. And as the representative that I spoke to from StubHub told me, they are set by the resellers. They essentially get to create their own free market of supply and demand of, okay, this is, how much other people are charging. This is how much I can charge, that I will get some money for this ticket and I can make a profit. And then that's how much that you will see those prices set on places like StubHub. And they change from day to day. I mean, you can kind of go as you get closer to the concert, and those prices may go up or down depending on how popular they are. So it's a bit more of a free for all. And what really makes it a free for all are the existence of bots who purchase scads of tickets from Ticketmaster when they go on sale and then resell them for highly inflated prices. This is a process that's been illegal in the United States since 2016, but it hasn't really curbed it actually being used by ticket resellers, especially in other places like the United Kingdom, where Oasis's, the rock band's mini reunion tour for this summer, has been plagued by issues with bots who, even when they put measures in place to try to stop those bots from buying up tickets, it still happened, and were selling for 8 times the price immediately on resale sites.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a big problem. I mean, it's not just a problem in the live concert industry. It's a problem in the theater industry, too. You saw this happen, for example, with the musical Hamilton back in the day. So this is incredibly common and a big problem that is hard to prevent.
Okay. So we've laid out all of these different processes that can drive up the cost of a ticket, but these tickets only get you into the event.
Right.
So there are obviously other costs that come into effect when you're experiencing a concert. Many people are going to want drinks and food, along with a lot of different memorabilia, fan items for their artists that they are there to support. So what have people said about these different barriers?
Right. I spoke to a few different people who were pretty upset about the prices of tickets and how much they've risen, but they were also concerned about things like parking, for example. That was a big thing that people I talked to were concerned about and that factored into their decision about whether or not to buy tickets to a certain concert. One woman I spoke to is a new parent, and she talked about whether, you would need to get a hotel room for the night to get, to spend some time away from the family or to have a date night out, whether you would need to worry about paying for parking, about gas, as some people I spoke to lived, 45 minutes away from the venue that they were going to see concerts at. That can get expensive. And some people talked about just like going out for a night with their friends and how much it costs to get things like pizza and beer. $75 for pizza for 6 people, $90 for beer for that many people. $17 for one beer sometimes, depending on what you're getting at arenas like PPG Paints Arena or Acrisure Stadium. Like, these are astronomical prices on top of already paying astronomical prices for concert tickets.
Okay. So, as we move into our last section, I want to ask about the outlook and potential for the future. So, if there aren't any changes to this market in any time soon, or the safeguards against price hiking bots, could we see some major changes when it comes to the concert experience in terms of volume and interest?
Well, I think there's a few factors here. From the people that I spoke to as individuals, they are definitely reconsidering the amount of concerts that they attend. Anytime they really get that sticker shock anytime they log on to see those bigger acts and how big their prices are. I spoke to people who were hesitant, for example, about buying tickets to see Billy Joel and Rod Stewart because of how expensive they were. But that being said, on the macro level, we continue to see demand for concert tickets rise. People are paying those ridiculously high prices, and it's going to make them hard for them to come down if they continue to. And one of the other factors here that a lot of people I spoke to, both, on the promoter side and on the production side of the concert industry, emphasized that there are ways to see live music that are more inexpensive. If you're going to clubs, if you're going to local shows, you aren't going to see those astronomical ticket prices. And I think something like 40% of tickets sold on StubHub in the United States cost less than $50. Those aren't going to be your Beyoncés or your Taylor Swifts, but they're going to be live music that you can enjoy. So look to those smaller venues and you may be able to see more affordable ticket prices. In the end, we may very well see a shift towards fewer people being willing to pay the prices. But for right now, the concert industry is absolutely booming. Maybe not so much here in Pittsburgh, but we'll see.
So, in my last part, and a little bit of a transition from this conversation, I want to take a wider view right now because, as I'm sure you and many of our listeners are aware, there are a lot of different inflationary and price affecting policies at play.
Yeah.
So, do you think that fans, performers, and everything in between will feel the effects of price shifts because of the tariff situation or conflicts that has been going on within the U.S. relations with other countries?
I think it's almost inevitable. I mean, again, when you're talking about these bigger tours and even smaller ones, you're also talking about inflation of prices when it comes to things like electricity, actual materials to build sets from, technology, all of those things when you're talking about dealing with tariffs with other countries are going to have an impact. The food and drink industry and the live concert industry are two industries with notoriously narrow profit margins. They, for your alcoholic beverages, if we see massive tariffs come into effect in Europe and other countries around the world, we're going to see the prices of beer and wine and liquor get higher than they already are, which, as I said before, are already insanely out of control. So, there's no way that people aren't going to feel those effects to some extent when they go to concerts and feel that squeeze even more on their wallets.
Just to your point, President Trump recently publicized his intent to impose a 200% tariff on wine, champagne, and other alcoholic drinks from members of the European Union unless the bloc drops their planned 50% tariff on United States whiskey. Now, the European Union postponed their tariffs, but the end of that postponement is just weeks away. So it's very possible that we could see the effects of these things start kicking in just at the start of the concert season. Here in Pennsylvania, we even saw some blowback. Governor Shapiro criticized Trump early last month, and he pointed to the estimated loss of $5.3 billion across Pennsylvania businesses due to this new tariff strategy. Mm-hmm. Now, those can have ripple effects, obviously, in every single market, every single sector, and every single industry. There is a tightening for many Americans, and it could mean a shift in our culture when it comes to leisure activities and entertainment as an industry.
Absolutely. I mean, for a lot of people, especially with the reputation that concerts have gotten for being so expensive, when you're looking at your budget every month and you're seeing the price of food go up, the price of gas go up, the price of electricity go up, the first thing that's going to go is those leisure activities like concerts. So there's definitely the possibility for some major effects if we see a massive economic contraction of there being issues with the concert industry. And the unfortunate thing about that is that it will likely hit a lot of these smaller artists and venues first before it hits the major ones.
Well, Alexis, I know you keep your finger on the pulse of these Pittsburgh concerts and all of the ongoings here, so I want to thank you for your work on this story, and I hope to see these prices eased soon.
Same. Definitely would like to to see as many people get to see their favorite artists as possible, and I hope to see as many of you as possible in the upcoming concerts this year. I can't wait to cover them. Thank you so much for having me, Zach.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this week's episode, share the podcast to help keep Western PA locally informed with insightful discussion and the latest news from your area. It's an easy way to spread the word, and it helps our podcast reach more people like you. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and turn on episode notifications so you never miss new content. Once again, I'm Zac Gibson, and this is From the Newsroom.